Hi and welcome. For the kickoff to this new series, I will go back in time and visit the first game of a rather well-known franchise called Professor Layton, which is a personal favorite of mine. It is a franchise that demonstrates very well that success can be achieved even with, or rather because of the use of a highly individual art style, not used by any of the mainstream competitors. The series originated as a puzzle-solving detective story starring a Holmes and Watson-like duo of a teacher and a student who are trying to solve the mystery entangled to the heritage case of a rather eccentric individual living in a town inhabited by people who are obsessed with puzzles and riddles. The franchise was invented and is still being produced by Level 5, a Japanese game development studio. It is mainly being published by Nintendo on their series of handhelds, however there are also some mobile ports for Android and iOS in existence. Also, it is produced by a Japanese company who are normally known for the use of manga-styled art directions. The visuals of the series display a rather Western or even more specifically European touch. If I'm not completely wrong, I would think the style is very reminiscent of French or Belgian cartoons like The Adventures of Tintin, Asterix or Spirou and Fantasio, while still maintaining some elements more commonly seen as Japanese or Eastern. Professor Layton in the Curious Village, as the title states, takes place in a rather laid-back and isolated village, consisting of almost exclusively old or rather medieval-like buildings, and presents a selection of characters who are eccentric where proportions and mimics are concerned, however also are very basic and casual when it comes to clothing and hairstyles. Everything is sun-based and looks and feels a little like being on a late summer vacation trip down to the south of France. All in all, the game has a warm storybook style to it, but it does not strive to only serve a child audience. Characters are highly individual in their depiction and work with a lot of eccentric exaggerations that suggest more depth to the surface. In this video, my focus will be the analyzation of character art specifically. I will look at a selection of artworks and try to recognize important directions that can be seen across all game assets. To test this analyzation and my understanding of the style, I will then proceed and try my hand on a made-up character concept that could be used as an actual in-game asset afterwards. For more information on the games and the developer, please visit the official websites. Links can be found in the description below. For the analyzation part of this video, I went ahead and found a selection of HD assets of the original game as a reference. I do not claim any copyright to these graphics and only use them for educational purpose. If you want to have a look at the game graphics yourself, you will find another link in the description containing the web source for them. So with that out of the way, let's start with a few basic observations. For character art, there are a few components you can have a look at to structure your view on the style being used. First there is scale, meaning the height of characters, which is usually measured in heads. A standard character will usually be a height of 6 to 8 heads. However, if you want to depict a more childlike or cute character, it will be around 3 to 4. So if we have a look at the characters for Professor Layton, you will see that each character falls within the later scale of being 3 to 4 heads in height. After defining a height for a character, the next style component would be defining proportions. Not yet in a strict way like you would be defining specific body types already, but in a more generalized way in the sense of the plane relation between the head, upper and lower body as well as extremities. If we have a look at our characters again, something that is important to notice when it comes to proportions specifically is the relation of the upper and lower body. Professor Layton's character design seems to put focus and weight on the depiction of upper bodies, by shortening legs and using either elongated torsos or clothing that has characteristics in support of underlining height of the upper body. Characters will depict upper and lower bodies either as being the same size or a lower body being smaller, furthermore giving the impression of longer arms. Another characteristic to note would be rather big feet. Continuing further, another style component to have a look at would certainly be line art and color. Overall, the color scheme of Professor Layton's characters achieves a kind of sun-based faded look by consisting mostly of what is considered to be warmer temperatured colors, as well as more desaturized tones. There are a lot of brown, rusty red and yellow tones being used. In general, I would say the coloring is rather matte, depicting only light shadow and very mildly used highlights that give more of a texture to skin and clothing, but you certainly won't see sparkling reflections on them. Lines on the characters are clearly outlining body parts and clothing elements. They are always a darker color of the element that is outlined, but they will never be simply gray or black. Lastly, when it comes to character design directions, it is very important to have an orientation on mimical or face components like eyes, noses, mouths, and ears. The eyes of Professor Layton's characters will either be small dotted circles, or sometimes those very dots will be framed by plain white circles in addition. They are never enormously big, but can differ in size between normal and very small in relation to the character's head. Noses are depicted highly diverse. They can either be just plain lines in the middle of the face, or big, prominent, even dark colored shapes. All in all, face characteristics will either be very reduced or exaggerated, but never just plain normal. After all this information, I hope you will also feel like having a better understanding of the game franchise's art direction and join me on a creation of a character depicted in the style that was analyzed. When trying to think of a character concept to strive for, it is always good practice to imagine a little narrative inside of your head. When I think of the game's scenario and the characters already in it, I see a rather normal person doing daily business out in the streets of town on a late summer's afternoon. So I came up with the decision of creating a small boy enjoying some ice cream, sitting on the doorstep of his house. So we have come to the end now, and I finished the speed painting process. I hope you had as much fun following me on that as I had during creation of the character. But now it is time to have an honest look at the result and confirm all the aspects that went right on the asset and what can certainly still be improved when it comes to the approach of the style analyzed. I think the character proves that I largely understood the color scheme by choosing desaturized tones of brown and muddy greens for the clothing, as well as faded yellows on the skin and head. However, the green of the shoes is definitely too cold in comparison. The outlines are okay, but still not dark enough. Mimic scale and proportion went quite well, but I would say the hands could have been slightly bigger. All in all, it was a good run, but you can only manage to learn parts of a style. Understanding comes with practice and looking honestly at your work to see what can be done better. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first video and join me on the next one. If you have any thoughts to share, be sure to comment. I am open for opinions on the format, advice from other professionals on improving my art approach, as well as general supporting feedback. Bye for now and see you in the next one.